Many years ago, in the bustling market of Umangasi, lived Ezine. She was a beautiful young lady. She was very beautiful, intelligent, and hardworking. But life had not been fair to her. She sold oranges at the market every single day. She would balance a tray of oranges on her head, wiping sweat from her face as she walked tirelessly. This was her daily hustle. She had been selling oranges for years, trying to support her mother and younger brother to survive. Ezinne, Ezinne, come and rest small. Haba, my daughter, you have been walking up and down this market since morning. At least sit down. Mama Ifoma, the old woman who roasted plantain, called out to her. But Ezinne simply smiled tiredly and said, Mama, if I rest, will hunger rest too? Hmm. I must finish selling these oranges so. If not, hunger will finish me and my family. Ezinne replied. Then as she turned to leave, she bumped into someone and her tray fell and her oranges rolled onto the ground. "Ah, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm sorry," Ezinne said, bending quickly to pick them up. No, 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 no. It's not your fault, my dear. Let me help you. A deep voice replied. Then she looked up and saw a tall, dark-skinned, handsome man. He was so cute. And from the way he dressed, he looked very wealthy. Are you okay? What is your name? Hope you're not hot. The man asked all at once. Isne simply nodded shyly and said, I'm Isne and I'm fine. I'm not hot. Isne replied, Oh, what a beautiful name. My name is Obinna and I just came to the market to get a few things. Do you sell here every day? The man asked. Isne hesitated before nodding and then he said, Good. Then I'll come back tomorrow and I'll make sure to buy all your oranges. Obinna said as he gave a small wink before stepping into his beautiful car and driving away. Izine stood still. Her heart was pounding. Who was this man? And why was he interested in her? For weeks, Obinna kept to his word. Every single afternoon, he would stop by and buy all her oranges, no matter how many they were. And he would sit with her and chat with her. Ezine learned that he was a businessman, the son of a very wealthy oil magnate. But he was different from the rich men that she had heard about because he listened to her when she spoke. He even laughed at her jokes and encouraged her dreams. And over time, their bond grew into something that neither of them had planned: love. Obinna, a rich businessman, had fallen in love with a poor orange seller. One evening, as they took a stroll along their street, Obinna stared at Ezine and said, Ezine, just tell me, if you could do anything in this life, what would it be? Obinna asked, looking concerned. Hmm. If I can do anything, no, and money is not a problem to sponsor what I want to do. Me, I want to go to school. I want to be someone important. But you know that school is expensive. I cannot remain an orange seller. That's just what I want. Ezine replied. Then Obinna leaned forward and said, What if I told you that I could make that dream happen? Allow me to sponsor your education. I will take care of everything. I have more than enough money to sponsor 50 people to school. Obinna said. Ezine was shocked. Ah, no, I can't let you do that now. We barely know each other. It's not just how many weeks that we've been talking and, chatting. We don't know ourselves like that. Ezine replied. Then Obinna smiled and said, I know enough. You're a smart young lady. You're hardworking and you're kind. See how hard you work every day to support your mother. Allow me help you just the way you help your mother. Obinna said, Are you sure? Are you sure? Ezine asked, and by this time, tears were streaming down her eyes. My dear, I have never been so sure of anything, Obinna replied as he hugged her tightly. Ezine was so happy, and from that day, that was how her life changed forever. Obinna enrolled her in the university, bought her books, gave her pocket money, and supported her morally and otherwise every single step of the way. And after he had enrolled her into the university, he waited for a few months, then asked her to please be his girlfriend. Izine was so excited and accepted immediately. It was a no-brainer for her. And so, they started dating. Obinna treated Izine like a queen. He spoiled her with gifts. He took her on trips and made her feel like the most important woman in the whole world. Izine had never seen that kind of love since she was born. Sometimes she feared that it was all a dream. Obinna even moved her mother and her brother into a new beautiful apartment and started a business for her mother and enrolled her younger brother into secondary school. Their lives had literally turned around for good. Izine was so happy. And things continued like this for a few years. And after Izine graduated, one evening, he took her to a private beach house and then looked at her and said, Izine, I have never loved anyone the way that I love you. You have changed my life. You make me a better man. Please marry me. Obinna said, smiling and holding her hands. Izine was so happy and screamed, of course I will marry you. You have given me everything. I don't even know how to thank you. I will marry you. I will be your wife. Izine said as tears of joy streamed down her face. And so, their love continued to blossom. They were in love with one another and looking forward to their wedding, looking forward to when they would officially become husband and wife. Everything was seemingly perfect until one day when tragedy struck. One night, Obinna and Ezine were discussing, laughing, and gisting when Ezine told him that she felt like eating suya. So Obinna, as the loving and doting fiancé, decided to hurriedly go and get the suya for the love of his life. So he drove out. But just as he drove out, Obinna was involved in an accident and was rushed to the hospital a few minutes later. Ezine was thereafter informed and she rushed to the hospital as well. She was so scared. She had never been scared like that all her life. She prayed fervently to God to please spare her fiancé's life. And hours later, the doctors came out with a serious look on his face. He looked at her and said, he's alive, but the accident damaged his spine and he may literally never walk again. The doctor said, looking very sad. Ezine was so broken, but was glad that at least he was alive because she loved Obinna too much and did not know what her life would look like without him. So a few days later, and Obinna became conscious. Izine went to see him and said, oh my love, I'm so glad that you're alive, that you're here with me. Thank you, Jesus. Izine said as she stared at him lovingly. And just then, Obinna began to cry. Then he looked at her and said, Izine, I wish I had died in that accident. I do not know how to live like this. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to become a cripple. I don't want to become a burden on people. I don't want you to see me as less of a man. And I do not want you to be stuck with a cripple. Obinna said, crying. Ezine simply leaned forward and kissed his forehead and then said, you're still the man I love. Whether on your two legs or in a wheelchair, nothing will ever change that. We'll get through this together. I'm here, my love. I'm never going to see you as a cripple. I'm not going anywhere. Ezine said reassuringly. So a few weeks later, and Obinna was discharged from the hospital and went back home. And Ezine continued to tend to him lovingly. However, things began to change when his mother came visiting. His mother was a wealthy and proud woman, and she had never liked Ezine. She was not pleased with Ezine at all. She blamed Ezine for her son's disability, saying that if she had not sent him to buy suya, then he would not have had an accident or become a cripple. Initially, Obinna was grateful to have Ezine by his side and was grateful that she tended to him with care and love. But as soon as his mother visited and left, Obinna became a changed man. He became very frustrated at his inability to walk. He began to snap at Ezine and scream at her at the slightest provocation. He even refused to eat her food and refused her help. He began to blame her for his condition, saying that if she had not sent him to buy suya, then none of this would have happened. Izini was so hurt by the hurtful words that he said, but she tried to remain strong for him because she knew that he was speaking out of pain. So she tried to reassure him severally and say, "You're still everything to me, Obin, but you have to fight. Do not let this disability consume you. This is not you. And just let me tell you, I'm not going anywhere. There's nothing you say that would ever make me leave you. I love you to death," Ezine would say lovingly. But Obinna did not believe her. Sometimes he would even beg her to leave him and go and start a new life. But Ezine refused. She was determined to start practicing their future vows now, for better or for worse, even before she took the vows. But all her love and support to Obinna did not change him. Instead, he was getting more frustrated each passing day. He continued to lash out at Ezine for the smallest things. If she left his side for too long, he would accuse her that she was getting tired of him. If she smiled at visitors, he would say that she was happier when he wasn't around. Ezine, why did you even agree to marry me? Was it because I was rich and could change your life? Or is it because I sent you to school and pulled you and your family out of poverty? Obinna asked one night, his voice laced with resentment. Ezine simply shook her head and said, "Obinna, can you stop? Please stop this. You know very well that I love you and I stay with you because I want to be with you." Ezine replied. But Obinna backed at her and said, "Lies, lies. You think I don't see the way people look at me now, Abi? People look at me with pity. People pity me and make mockery of me. I used to be strong. I used to be healthy and agile. Now look at me. I'm just a burden. I'm just a vegetable sitting down on a chair all day, all night." Obinna screamed at Ezine. Ezine was getting tired of all the accusations. At this point, she was tired of being the understanding girlfriend. She wanted to leave Obinna for good, but did not know how to. Besides, she did not even know what people would say about it, especially after all that Obinna had done for her and her family. She also felt that it was unfair to leave Obinna at his lowest point, especially after he had had the accident on his way to go buy suya for her. Besides, his mother did not even give her any breathing space. Every single day, she would call her to remind her never to think of leaving her son, especially after all that her son had done for her. Even his best friend Chuka would often stare at her and say, "Ezine, Ezine, I hope you are not nursing a thought of leaving my friend. Oh. Just let me let you know, you owe him. If not for Obina, just tell me, where would you be? So please do not even be unfortunate or ungrateful. Never in your life think of leaving him. You will stay by his side and tend to him. After all, if he was hale and hearty, wouldn't you be married by now?" Chuka would say to her fiercely. Ezine was so frustrated. She was in tears. Everyone guilt-tripped her and made her feel selfish for wanting to leave. So against her better judgment, she stayed back, enduring all forms of emotional and verbal abuse from her crippled fiancé. She knew that the man that she loved was long gone. He was no longer in this body. She did not know the spirit that was occupying Obinna right now, but she knew that it was definitely not Obinna, the man that she had fallen in love with. But again, she could not gather the courage to leave him. So a few months later, an Ezinne married Obinna, who was in a wheelchair, not out of love, but out of pity. And from the very first day of their marriage, Obinna was cruel to her. He became cold and distant. He resented his condition and took it out on her every blessed day. He continued to shout at her over the smallest things. If she took long to return from errands, let's say she went to buy things for the house, Obinna would accuse her of seeing another man. And when she tried to cheer him up, just gist, talk and laugh, he would tell her that she was mocking him. He never appreciated anything that she did. He was always complaining. And in no time, Obinna's bitterness graduated from just bitterness into outright wickedness. He began to control her every move. He refused to let her see her family, claiming that they would poison her mind against him. He even forced her to quit her job, saying, "What do you need money for? I have more than enough money. Abi, are you trying to gather money so I can run away?" Obinna would say. He said a lot of hurtful things to her. He would even throw his food on the floor, screaming at her. "Is this the nonsense that you want me to eat? When I had two legs, didn't I give you money for better meals? Was I not taking you to the finest restaurants? Now you're giving me this nonsense food because in your mind now, I'm a cripple, Abi. I can't go anywhere." Obinna would scream angrily at his wife. And that night, he also made sure that she had no peace. He would wake her up. "Bia Ezinne, go and get me water. Ezinne, shift this pillow. Oya, come, massage my leg." He did all these things, anything just to make her life uncomfortable, to remind her that she was trapped with him. He would even wake her up angrily and say, "You owe me, Ezinne. I made you. Without me, you will still be in that dirty market selling oranges. You need to be grateful to me." Obinna would say to Ezinne. At this point, Ezinne knew that she had made the worst mistake of her life. The man that she had fallen in love with was no longer in Obinna's body. Something else had consumed him. Something else had taken over. Ezinne tried speaking to her mother about her situation, but her mother shared the same view as many others. Her mother looked at her and said sadly, "Ezinne, you cannot leave him. Oh. This man sent you to school, gave you a life. He picked us up from the gutters and cleaned us up. Do you want to abandon him now that he needs you? Remember, this man made our lives better. Oh. Please, my dear, just manage. Do you know what people will say? They will call you a gold digger. They would mock us. Because you know, name." My Ezinne said to her, looking worried. Ezinne was trapped. Every single day, she regretted the moment she walked down the aisle with Obinna. She regretted the moment that she said "I do" to this monster because this was not the Obinna that she knew and fell in love with. One day, she decided to take a walk so that she could get fresh air and clear her head. And that was when she met a young man whose name was David. David was sitting in his car when he saw Ezinne walking and talking to herself and looking very sad. So he walked up to her and spoke to her. "Are you okay? Are you fine?" David asked, looking concerned. And Ezinne did not know how heavy the burden she was carrying was because she immediately broke down in tears before a complete stranger. David had to help her into his car and they sat down for hours. And she narrated every single thing that she had been going through while David listened attentively and comforted her. Ezinne felt better after talking to a complete stranger. So Ezinne began to see David in secret every day. It was her own way of escaping from her hurtful, crippled husband, Obinna. David was never judgmental and would listen to all her rantings and complaints. And things continued like this for the next few months. One day, David advised her to leave her husband's house and come and stay with him for a while until she knew what she wanted to do, if she wanted to leave her marriage for good or stand by her husband. Ezine felt so relieved, yet so lost. So that day, she went back home and packed a few of her properties and left everything behind. She left Obinna, the man that she had once loved, and moved in with David. But barely few weeks after she moved in with David, the news spread all around that she was cheating on her husband with another man, even though in reality, she was not in a relationship with David. She was just staying in his house to clear her head. Her phone kept on buzzing, kept on ringing non-stop. Different people were calling her to insult her, from Obinao to his mother to even his best friend Chuks. Even her friends were calling to mock her. They would tell her things like, Shebi, when everything was going on well, you stayed with him. Now that he's a cripple, you want to leave him. Better go back. Oh, you are not leaving him for anybody. Izine was so hot. Even her own mother called her and begged her, saying, Izine, please go back to Obinna. Remember that he gave you everything. Because what would people say? People would mock us. They will call you a gold digger. Biko, just manage him the way he is. Her mother called, begging. So while David continued to be there for her, making sure that she was okay, offering her comfort, food, and friendship, and yet not asking for anything in return, Isne continued to feel sad. She did not know what to do, whether to go back to her husband or leave for good. But as the calls and whisperings persisted, Isne felt trapped. She felt guilty for leaving Obinna, and so she packed her bags to leave David and go back to her husband's house. David tried to talk her out of it. David told her to put herself first, but it was pointless because Ezine's mind was made up. She took her bags and left his house. But that became the beginning of her misery because Obina became worse and sometimes would even use cane to flog her while seated on the wheelchair. He would throw her food away and scream angrily at her. You are an orange seller and that is all you will ever be. I made you. I own you. Obina would shout angrily. Izine was sad. One day, Obina had cursed her and spoken to her anyhow, abused her verbally, and she could not take it any longer. So she drugged his drink, and when he dozed off, Ezine used a pillow and snuffed the life out of Obina. And when she had done that, she broke down in tears. How did I just kill a man? What did I do? What have I done? Ezine said as she cried. She could not believe that she just killed Obina, the same man that she loved and that loved her, the man who had made her into the woman that she was. Ezine wept and wept. She felt so guilty, and so she stood up and walked straight to the police station and reported herself that she had killed her husband Obina. Ezine was thereafter arrested, charged to court, and she spent the rest of her days in tears. She cried and cried. Her friend David felt so bad for her. He visited her from time to time at the prison. He wished that she had listened to him when he told her to take a break and leave her abusive husband. Her mother also felt very bad for her. She wished that she had allowed her leave when she had the chance. Hi besties! It's your favorite storyteller, Omalicha. Thank you so much for watching my story to the end. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you think about people who marry out of pity? Or first off, can you ever marry somebody out of pity? Now, secondly, what do you think about Ezine? Do you think that she should have stood her ground and not gotten married to Obinna in the first place? Or do you think that she should have stayed with Obinna and endured all the abuse and wait for when he would get better? Please share your thoughts with me in the comment section and please support your home girl, Omalicha, by subscribing to my channel, liking my videos, and sharing with your loved ones. So now, till I come your way again with more interesting stories. Bye.